Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's so nice to see you all. Really appreciate your attendance, and we're excited to be here today. My name is Christina Billingsley. I work at the Port of Seattle in the External Relations Department, focused on community engagement related to maritime industry and our partnerships there, and focused on environmental issues. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Maribel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Maribel Pastor, and I do not work for the port. I'm a community member, and I'm part of the Port Community Action Team, and might be asked, what is that? And what it is that I'm a community member that works in South Park, and I'm part of this team that actually looks for ways to collaborate with the Port of Seattle so we can improve the quality of life of our community in many areas of economic development and environmental justice.
Great, thank you. So we'll just get started. We'll just move right along. Let's see. Okay. So this is a little background context on the Port of Seattle. The Port of Seattle was founded in 1911. It is a special purpose government focused on economic development for King County broadly. We are focused on being a gateway, and we strive to be the greenest gateway, which is why we're here at the Sustainability Conference, to not only focus on our environmental priorities, but also our social cohesion practices and equity practices. This case study that we'll be talking about today is combining both our social, our environmental, and our economic goals into a program with our community members, our near port community members, impacted by Port of Seattle operations, and explaining that kind of history and background to you all in this process and how we got there. So, as I mentioned, the Port of Seattle was founded in 1911. It's a very old institution. And these are our economic highlights. These are the different sectors in which the Port of Seattle operates and is a leader and pioneer in many sustainability investments, which y'all have probably heard about, since we try to be the greenest port in North America. And we also have our social and equity programs as well that we'll be talking about today. So just to give you a glimpse, we host the Pacific Northwest fishing fleet. So if y'all ate any salmon from the Pacific, from Alaska this summer, that is caught from fishers who park their boats at Port of Seattle properties over the year. So that likely came from our property Fisherman's Terminal in Ballard. We also operate Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. So if you flew here today, you also passed through Port of Seattle properties and watched our management there. And you also see the cruise lines. So if you go downtown, it is cruise season. We're having our last few cruises of the season. We have people come through from Seattle to go visit Alaska. So we're the home base for that cruise service. And also we are the fourth largest cargo terminal in the area, in the country, in North America. We partner with the Port of Tacoma in a joint venture called the Northwest Seaport Alliance. And that allows both ports to synchronize in sustainability and efficiency to make sure that good jobs related to cargo shipments, and all that economic trade comes through our ports in the Pacific Northwest to bolster our local economy. So as you can tell, those are huge sectors. That's a lot of emissions. That's a lot of people moving around. That's a lot of traffic. That's a huge carbon footprint. And what we're here today to talk about is acknowledging that impact that we have in our local community. What are ways that we can work with our community in partnership to mitigate some of that and also expand benefits to community members that have not been included in some of those benefits but have borne the brunt of those environmental and health and economic impacts over time. So back in 2016, we, as well as two other port authorities, were selected for an EPA technical advisory grant, and this grant program came out of the EPA Ports Initiative. The EPA Ports Initiative guided our port, the local community called the Duwamish Valley, as well as industry partners in the aviation and maritime sectors and transportation sectors, to be able to have a conversation around what are those impacts, what's the history of those impacts, and how can we actually get to some solutions collectively together. So with that practice of 2 years working through really constructive, really useful conversations with community and these different port-related industries and port leaders, we reached a policy. We wrote a policy with the community members like Maribel, and that policy is focused on 3 different goals to collectively, collaboratively address topics related to environmental justice. Environmental justice is kind of a political term, but what we're really talking about is communities that have been most impacted by our operations as an entity and least served and also least heard. So what you'll see and what Maribel will speak about is the port in relationship to the community that she works in and loves, and how we're building a partnership for the future together. So the 3 goals, just to give you a brief summary of that before we go into the details, is around capacity building as the very first goal. How do we maintain healthy dialogue, maintain healthy relationships, and civic engagement? Because the Port of Seattle is a democratically elected government agency. How do we make sure that we're responsible and accountable to our constituents most impacted and least heard? The second is around healthy environment and communities. This is very relevant to everyone in this room today because we are looking to find out what are those accessible environmental benefits that we can bring into the communities we impact through our operations, and what are some of those collaborations that we can discover together, green job sectors, how do we bring new people into those sectors? And the final is economic prosperity and place, and this is focused on how do we, as an economic driver for the entire region, equitably invest in the community most impacted. So Maribel will go into that a little bit more, and I'll pass it over to her.
Thank you. So Christina was mentioning how the Port of Seattle is everywhere. You know, it's in the airport, it's in different neighborhoods, in different areas, but the impact and how, the collaborations have not been the same in all the sectors. So here you have a map. It's kind of an old map, and that's for a reason, because it's part of like the systemic racism that is existed, like with certain communities. I'm part of the Duwamish Valley community. I work in South Park. I serve the community of South Park in the ways of, trying to, bring economic development, train people looking for jobs, see where they're at, and see how can we bring them to hopefully bring generational wealth for the families, especially the families of immigrants. And as you see here, like sorry, I need to step up and see and read. We face in this valley racial discrimination in city zoning since the 30s, income suppression and prejudice, highway and traffic density, historic contamination, railway noise, private industry pollution. And recently, we have the COVID-19 frontline workers being part of the communities of South Park and Georgetown. And I can tell you and read all that, but I can also tell you what has been my experience. I work for an organization called Villa Comunitaria, and what we do is that we help everybody in the community, South Park in particular, and Georgetown, too, somehow has a big community that is immigrant community. And so what we do is that we try to help people how to navigate the system in this country, how to just like from the beginning, from finding a job, finding a place to live, to, all the layers that you can find. And that's kind of like the people that I deal and that I share and I work with in a daily basis, and I see how they are looking for opportunities of working in different industries. They want to be trained, they want education, and that's kind of like the kind of collaboration that we want to bring. But it's not only related to jobs, it's also related to housing, it's relating to daycares, it's related to everything else. It's relating to health through environmental justice. Where I work, last year we had a flooding in South Park, and you visited the houses and you see that for years and decades, they're having all sorts of environmental problems. They have a house here and then an industry across the street, polluting, and then the zoning is just being done like that. So the impact of the port in certain ways is not being the same. So what do we do about it? We just complain about it, or we try to collaborate. So this is on the next slide, what we're trying to do with the goal number 1, that is community leadership and capacity building. And the capacity building is bringing that training, bringing, that information, education to the community to apply for these jobs, to be part of the port. So the port is part of your family because it brings, a good wage to your family, and then you can raise your kids. And then there's a certain way of not thinking that the port is this monster full of infrastructures and cranes, but it's also part of your family. That's where the money is coming from. That's the money that I'm going to send my kids to college. You want to talk about that?
Thank you. Yes. Thanks, Maribel. That was perfect. So that's exactly it. We're trying to build those bridges and build those connections and relationships between community members so that we can actually make sure that those folks that have been historically excluded from our sectors in sustainability, in transportation, in tourism, in maritime and aviation are actively included. So it definitely has a better, different image, as well as impact in the community. So Maribel is one of our community advisors that does that for us, brings us literally to the table to talk about what are y'all's investments in different things that we value also. We value sustainability. We understand that climate change is important and it's directly impacting our lives as we experienced this winter with the flooding that Maribel had mentioned. So these things are impacting people directly and we want to bring them into the solutions. And there's really positive, proactive ways we can do that as industry leaders. And for you all, because we're in this sustainability conversation today, some of the ways that we've been able to build those bridges and build that healthy dialogue has been baseline. We all want clean air. We all want clean water. We want a park to take our children to. And the Port of Seattle, as you all have heard from me, is a special purpose government focused on economic development. We can tick some of those boxes within state law and what we're allowed to do, but we have a wide breadth of a portfolio, as you saw, that can, with creativity, with open-mindedness, with innovation, solve some of these problems that we could be an ally on. So on the far left, I want to just highlight a sustainability project that was it's a salmon habitat restoration project. If y'all are new to Seattle or you've never been to South Park before, please go. This is the time. The salmon are jumping right now. It's incredibly inspiring to go and see this park. This was because of community collaboration 20 years ago, where South Park, the neighborhood that Maribel is talking about today, came to the Port of Seattle and said, we want this cleanup site. This is a particular EPA-designated cleanup site. We would like this to be a place to bring our children to learn about salmon, and we would like salmon to be here and make it a habitat restoration space. The Port of Seattle heard that and was able to turn this into an investment around carbon banking. So we are generating natural environmental credits and selling that based out of the site to other organizations that need mitigation credits. So that's a really exciting example of the green economy that we're a part of now because of community conversations. The second is around green jobs. So if you go downtown, you'll also see kelp. This is also the season to watch kelp in Elliott Bay. It's really exciting. The internship program that we started with the Port Community Action Team, with some community members like Maribel, brought young people from that community, from the Duwamish Valley community, to learn about environmental values, environmental restoration projects. They were the first cohort of kelp planters at the Port of Seattle, and you can see their work now flourishing up and down Pier 69. The last one is, again, another green jobs venture that we've started, and I would love to talk to folks in this room around this. We are looking for partners in the industries, in sustainability industries, to be able to train our young people from the neighborhoods so that they can be leaders in this economy, in the green economy. So that is water sample testing from one of our young people, high school students from South Park, from the Duwamish Valley, getting this experience for the first time. And she is now at Central Western University studying in sciences. And this is definitely connected to that. So we're really proud of her. The last slide, I will kick this back to Maribel.
Yeah, so before you said that, we're now working on our second round for green jobs. And it's not only with younger people, adults are being recruited to learn about green jobs. And this is just an example, it's just one. And what happens is that it opens people's minds into new possibilities of what, your industries can bring to the table for the population, for people that really want training and wanna be part of the society. And the last goal is economic prosperity in place. So how do we do all of these goals if we don't have a place to meet, if we don't have a building where community can go? And that is, is the need of infrastructure. We're talking today in Infra Day, and what we need also is not only infrastructure for technology, but we need infrastructure for the community. And how do we do that? For example, the Port of Seattle has been very smart. They realized that instead of, hiring, consultants about how to tell them how to do things, they decided to just support this group of community members that we rotate. We are not there forever. That we work in an area that's been impacted, so we know what's going on, and we can tell them what the community needs instead of a consultant asking a few people and then telling them, their version of what the community needs. So, but for that, we need infrastructure. Now we have the hub, and the hub is being a place where people can just have job fairs, but also recently we had a back to school event, for example. You could say, what is that related to economic development? It has a lot to do because, we gave away backpacks and we gave away a bunch of things, but at the same time, we offer opportunities. It was like the Maritime High School was there, other opportunities for high school students to go into different trades. There was opportunity to connect with environmental organizations and find out a little bit more about all the industries and all the possibilities that younger people in particular are really interested in. And that's kind of like, for that we need a community center or a place where we can provide and people feel safe, that they can go in and that they feel that they're a part of the community. And our dream, is to have more than just a little community center or like 1 room or 2 rooms. It would be great if we could have an economic development building where we can have childcare, so mothers can have their kids and get some training and then go to work and find a place where we can, have kids doing homework while parents get training. That would be great if, we also invest in infrastructure for the community in general, thinking that that's kind of like the way to go. Environment involves people. So that's what I wanted to say in a big, Go ahead. Oh yeah, the last slide is our community, and it reflects a little bit what we were talking about how by doing all these little things, these little steps that we're taking, it's not only that we talk about the port, right? But we talk about our port, about an industry being part of our lives. And it's just to destroy those barriers, those, mental barriers, that are based and been with us since the beginning of humankind through to racism and colonialism, imperialism, all the isms that you can find. And that's kind of like the idea that the port is engaging with the community, and there's not a clear barrier anymore, and there's a collaboration and a future with the community.
And that is our presentation. My contact information for both me and Maribel is on there, and so is our website. So please do reach out if you have any questions. We'll be here after the presentation as well. Thank you for your time.